All right, I think we're being 5:32-ish or so. I think it's time to call the order. The meeting, let's all rise for the allegiance. I can remember it. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody, for showing up. And, thousands of people we have in the audience tonight. We want to thank you very much for chiming in. I haven't been here. I wasn't here last month.
Welcome back.
But I was in Phoenix, so I'm not gonna say that it wasn't nice. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Meetings minutes?
Yep, we got one, October 10th.
October 10th.
You guys got any questions on it at all? Or?
Nope, nope.
All right, I move to approve the Water and Sewer Commissioners' meeting minutes of October 10th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Good job, Brooke. Thank you.
Yeah.
We need to sign that?
Yeah.
Right.
Date on it.
And we're gonna, order, we'll go right into the superintendent updates. Those are usually always the fun, most fun.
They are the best. Don't miss TV. I'm gonna start off with something that is not in here. We'll take it as it's out of order. It's an abatement request. We found out that one of the tower lease agreements that we have was actually terminated back in April, and Dish has ended up taking over that spot. The account still had a balance left on it, as all lease accounts are committed for the entire year rather than monthly. So back in July, when the money was committed, we were not aware of the termination taking place back in April. So we continued to bill for May and June, which would not be received because of the termination in April. So we're asking the board to approve an abatement for account 9011 in the amount of $9,849.77 due to termination of lease. Did I get that correct, Brooke?
Yes,
So
Thank you.
who is this to? Is this to Dish?
that would be to
Okay.
T-Mobile and Sprint. Terminated the contract.
And did they,
Based on their agreement, they do not pay their term in full. Each individual tower lease has its own wording and own language in there.
okay.
Some of them, they do pay the penalty if they terminate the lease early. This, they pay based on the time that they remain occupying the space.
And now, who occupies it now?
It's going to be taken over by Dish Network.
Okay, so we haven't had a contract with somebody else actively paying since this terminated. It's been
Correct.
nobody doing anything.
So it's $9,000 for just a couple months?
Wow. Some of the tower leases that were set back many, many years ago have gone up significantly. So it is a little painful to lose a few of them. It's nice to see that we found somebody else to take it over. But unfortunately, as things progress and the way the technology is changing, it's not gonna be uncommon that you're gonna lose quite a few of the antenna sites because they're going with other locations, whether it be steeples, whether it be monopoles, sites that are a little easier to use. And with the transition from 3G to 4G and now 5 and even higher, a lot of the structures don't require the footprint that the original stuff took. So
Has this happened before in the past?
we've lost a couple other ones in the past.
And this is protocol, basically? Okay.
Yeah, we typically look through the lease agreement. Like I said, this is just one that's unique. Typically, they pay the entire year in full. This is has a yearly set amount, and it's paid monthly. So it was in their best interest to leave as soon as possible once they knew, because they wouldn't be charged the full amount, so.
So this money was paid before they left?
No, they left in, they
April.
They canceled in April.
Right.
They left in April.
And they continued to pay?
We weren't knowing that they had already terminated that lease. we continue to bill.
Oh,
So
okay,
this is
okay,
showing-
okay. So they haven't actually given us this money, we're
Correct.
just,
It's not really,
Okay,
it's like buying
okay.
a coat and sale.
Yep,
There's really
yep,
no
yep.
money involved here.
okay, okay.
It's a formality to clear the
Understand.
computer and clear the books.
Okay, all right.
That they owe this money.
I feel better.
So is this done, what about equipment? I mean, there's nothing to do with that. The equipment is on wherever it is. So
They
somebody-
remove everything that's on the tower,
Mhm.
and on the ground. We actually did get, a couple sections of chain link fence that are in really good shape, and actually a stainless steel canopy that was over some of their equipment that was there. We asked them to leave that, and they did, so we can repurpose that.
So there's no damage or anything that needs to be done
No.
on our end to, there's not a detriment?
No.
Yeah, okay.
And that is how the contract is written, so, yeah, okay, I'm good with that, you
Yeah,
guys.
me too. I thought we had to come up with that money, that's.
No.
All right, I move to approve an abatement for account 9011 in the amount of $9,849.77 due to termination of lease.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That word all right?
Yeah, no, I'm just, the abatement request is, it sounds like we're writing a check. So, that's not the
It
case.
is not a check, correct.
Okay, yeah. Welcome, Dalton Wash.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good.
Yep.
All right, back to the fun. We'll jump right into the public notice. Public notice for PFAS was mailed as required by Mass DEP on November 20, 2023, within the 30-day notification window. The initial violation was reported on 10/30/23, which is when the well was taken offline. Based on the timing of getting the public notice approved, mailed, sent out, and getting to the residents. Some customers received it before Thanksgiving, some after, and I've had 1 or 2 calls trickle in about it. John and I worked on a simplified version of the original public notice template, just following the direction that's written on the template by Mass DEP. Keep it simple, very informative. Kind of took them back a little bit. We sent it off for draft approval. They actually went back and forth a little bit with what we had in there, and they actually had to send it to Boston to get final approval because the draft was altered significantly, which is something typically sounds like they don't allow. So the draft that went out was our modified version with 1 or 2 little minor corrections on it. The biggest thing that they required to be changed was the indication of the sample. So instead of being 20 ppt, parts per trillion, they wanted 20 NGL, nanograms per liter.
Okay.
So we obliged and definitely changed that, and
That was what they hung their hat on?
that's the last thing they hung their hat on. So we went ahead and did that, but we felt that the notice was clean and to the point. Knowing how confusing that they can be, we did everything we could to simplify it. It generated 3 phone calls and 1 voicemail. But unfortunately, social media was rather active about it.
Well, I think no matter what you post, what you don't post, social media is gonna brutalize anything in any situation, unfortunately.
Did you respond to that, John?
I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what happened?
I had 1 like and 1 comment.
Yeah, so there was a lot
I
of.
had only
information.
1 comment at Red Mills Village. Just thought I'd let you know.
Good. No,
I was ready
Yeah, that's
to
good.
defend it, but nobody asked, so I didn't bring it up.
no, I've heard from a few different people in passing that, again, they were upset that they even received the notice. The first thing was, well, how much did that cost us? Explain to them the process behind that and how much
Welcome to our
that
world,
was.
yeah.
And,
Okay.
you know, it's unfortunate, but it is required by Mass DEP. We've asked them numerous times if there's any other way of getting the information out there, and basically the answer is no, that's what they require, and that's what you're gonna do.
Okay.
So we oblige, and we do that to stay compliant. So as you had mentioned, Steve, John responded when he returned to the online chat group, basically trying to answer each individual question got to be very time consuming. So a large informative message was sent out. It seemed to answer just about 90% of the questions that were there.
I thought it was well done, John.
It was very well put.
Facebook?
straightened out some of the misconceptions
Well,
and
we hope
could be.
But
falsehoods.
it's,
No,
that's what
what
it is.
he's talking
People
about
jump
was
to
through Facebook.
conclusions and,
Yeah.
it's just education.
My
We
wife
just
showed
need
it
to
to me,
educate
actually.
about it. It's difficult for people, some people to understand in lieu of everything that's we've gone through years and years in the past. And to have something on the table again,
Mhm.
it's just, you know, wakes it up,
Mhm.
I guess. It's more,
Yeah. So, you know, when that happened, we followed the recommendations by Mass DEP, because I was asked why the well was taken offline. And I thought it was pretty obvious that it was taken offline to remove the threat. But, you know, we explained to them,
who asked that? Someone from DEV?
no, it was a random customer.
Oh,
that had
customer,
asked,
okay,
you know,
okay.
And we explained to them, you know, that's the only source that has an elevated level. We were able to take it offline because it was a winter month. As we move forward, getting closer to spring, or if something changes with the other wells, you know, there's a possibility it may have to go back online before a remedy is actually in place. If that happens, additional public notices will need to be sent out indicating the change in status, you know, what we are doing for corrective actions, both short-term and long-term, is stuff that we're working on with the engineers already. Again, just a little bit of confusion when those notices go out, and it's really not extremely clear, even though we felt this one was much better than others that have been going out, had been mailed out in the past.
And it's terrible because there's nothing we can do. It's what the water is coming from. It's not something we've generated or we can even avoid. Every town is hit with this.
Yep.
Every town.
Yeah, one of the residents I had spoken to had asked about the possibility of putting another machine back in town. I said, you know, it's not something that's completely off the table. We would rather look for a better permanent solution and a better place to invest our money. You know, DEP has allowed those machines to go in other locations where the permanent replacement or permanent filtration isn't going to be built for many, many years because of the cost. So it's definitely something that will be looked at, and we just have to come up with a determination of where we want the funds to go and better be used.
And this stuff has been in our water systems since the 50s, 40s maybe. You know, they changed the to parts per million to parts per billion to trillion now.
Yeah. And then the biggest concern is still that we don't know about the actual EPA limit that's been looming for quite a while now,
Yeah.
saying that, you know, basically they want 0, which they're gonna say is gonna be 4 parts per trillion. Most of the filtration systems out there can't remove down to that amount. There's a lot of laboratories that can't even test to that amount.
That's right.
So there's a lot of miscommunication going on, so we're glad that they've wavered on the initial thought and haven't actually put that into law yet. But if you do research it, it does come up that that is the EPA level currently right now. It's just not being enforced, so.
What, 4 parts?
Where it was 70?
It was 70.
It was 70. Massachusetts chose to lower theirs to 20.
Right, and now the EPA is like, oh, it's gonna be
EPA
4?
is going to 4 parts per trillion.
Individual.
There's
PFAS
more
components.
involved, but
Okay.
it's gonna be very
There are 6
challenging.
combined in the
Oh,
20 that you
okay,
have for
okay,
mass. There
okay.
are 6 of them that are combined.
So it's not just gonna be a total, you're gonna have to
There's
comply with the
individual-
total, but then you also have to speciate that out and comply with the limit.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have mass
Wow.
rule and
Okay,
EPA.
It'll be a challenge, put it that way, for just about everybody.
For a lot of, it's gonna cripple a lot of
Mhm.
communities.
Yeah. So, with that, we had been speaking with DEP, a different manager at DEP, about potentials for increasing capacity from our well 1. This come about from a sanitary survey that we had done well over a year ago, and there was some questions with old well 2, which I don't know if any of you even know about, but it was decommissioned
we talked about it
incorrectly.
a couple times.
Yeah.
We had looked and talked about different options way back when well 1 was put in back in 2002,
It's near
2003.
well 1, right?
Very close to
Yeah,
it.
okay, yeah. Talking about this.
So this lady had said that she was going to investigate a little bit more to see why it was classified as decommissioned incorrectly and see if there was anything she could do to help us out. We've spoken to her a few different times. We've provided her with the original pumping records from when that well was
Is that
developed.
similar capacity?
It was at the time, but it's been many years since it's had anything pumped from it. So what they were looking for is pumping records from our current well 1 to see if there was any possibility of achieving more from there, because it's from a less stressed aquifer. So we'd kind of been holding off on doing any work at well one, hoping that some good news would come from that potential invest at well one. Unfortunately, as of October 30th, when well 3 went down, now having 2 wells offline has drastically changed the way the distribution system functions. Everything that's coming through the treatment plant is coming from wells 4, 5, and 6, and it's actually changed the direction of flow water gets from the plant to this side of town. So we've seen, not water quality issues, but we've seen lower chlorine disinfection residuals in the distribution system. Noticeable changes because we don't have that blend, we don't have that extra pressure to push it certain ways through town. So with that, we've had to increase the chlorine amounts leaving the treatment plant to still have a detect on this side of town.
Yep.
With that, unfortunately, is gonna go back to the same issues we had before with triggering THMs. You know, the water comes over here, sits in the tanks for a while, then gets out to the distribution system, to the dead ends. And regardless of how much flushing we do, the water age is still exponentially increasing. So that, unfortunately, is more than likely going to be something that's gonna trigger in the near future, prior to getting the mixer and the aerator in the tank, which is in the works. So unfortunately, you know, the chips just keep stacking up, and there's only so much you can do with what we have available to us. So with that being said, we actually moved and reached out to our well cleaner for well one, anticipating 2 to 3 month turnaround. It just so happened he had an opening, somebody had dropped out, so the rig is there now. That well's getting cleaned this week.
Good, well,
We didn't feel comfortable holding off to hear from DEP about the potential to increase the capacity there, which would mean a larger pump and a larger motor. More than likely, that would trickle down to needing a larger VFD, which is where most of the money comes in. So we're gonna run with what we have and what we know. We're gonna clean that well, get it back to its original capacity, hopefully 200 gallons a minute, right around there. And hopefully just use it as needed, as we
What is it
did
down to
before.
now about?
It was down to about 75 to 80 gallons per minute. You know, it clogs frequently, very
Yeah.
similar to what happens over at our well 4. The formation is very tight, so when it clogs, it locks up pretty tight.
Yeah.
And takes a bit to get it clean. We'll deal with what we get from that well. Hopefully, the very next day, we don't hear that we can go and put a 400 gallon well in there. It just isn't gonna happen. So benefits will be we'll have that well back online, hopefully operational up to its original capacity. We won't know about changes in water quality as far as manganese, because that is the well that hovers at or above the action level. We hope by having it cleaned, we'll see the lower numbers on the scale, but it definitely could go the other way if we open up a different vein that hasn't been open in 20 years. So it's a gamble, but we need the water, and we're less concerned about the manganese.
but if we get extra, we could probably justify putting a plant there potentially, right? I mean, if we looked at the numbers.
Yep, it's something that we've talked about. We're
Smaller.
limited by how much we can remove there or safely remove there because of other external components in the area. So we definitely don't want to put a 1,000 gallon a minute capacity well there. We'd have to deal with a lot more than what we do now. But it'd be nice to have a little bit more buffer. You know, we probably wouldn't run it all the way at the max capacity, even if we got 350. We'd give that range. Right now, we're always running pretty close to the max to make it worthwhile to pump it. So, unique situation, unfortunate. You know, we'll move forward as we need to, but you know, focusing on the changes that we noticed in the distribution system by having those 2 non-filtered wells off. We don't like the way it's trending. We don't like the fact that we're basically kind of abusing wells 4, 5, and 6 a little bit in the treatment facility. It's designed to do what it's doing, but we're gonna pay for it in the long run. We're gonna have to do additional cleanings, you know. Obviously, we've already seen the electric bills go up, so there's a win and there's a loss category there, and we'd like to take a little bit off beating up those new wells. So with that action that's changed, we hope to get well 1 on possibly even by the end of the month. We may just wait till the 1st just to clean the quarter out and go start with a brand new quarter. Even with well 1, if it comes back to 200 gallons a minute, we're still gonna need well 3 by the time spring rolls around. We're just not gonna be able to meet system demand, be able to do system distribution flushing, and take any of the other wells off, whether it be for cleaning, maintenance, or anything like that, without having a safe buffer.
So are we, I'm sure you've talked about this a million times, about a temp system, something there on site? Like a
We're
temp
looking at
PFAS system?
hundreds of options.
Yeah, I got it.
We can
Yeah.
talk to it blue in the face about what
Yeah.
we're looking at. The main focus right now is actually on a potential blended system, bringing in distribution water to well 3, mixing it with the water coming out of the ground at well 3 before it goes back into the distribution system.
Like a holding tank?
Pre-blending it, kinda.
Or
Not
what do they
exactly
do
a
with piping?
tank, but it would be piping.
Piping?
So we have the opportunity to do basically some investigative work right now because well 3 is offline. Any samples that we take don't count towards the state results. So we can do this theoretical blending dilution factor, see what we can come up with and see what the numbers come in at. And then we would have that, if it works, and it looks like it's going to be a steady and something we want to move forward with, we'll get the engineers involved. It'll need to be engineered, stamped, sent to DEP for approval. And then they're either gonna, fluff it off and say that's not something you can do, or maybe they're gonna accept it. It's, what we're presenting is different.
Is that something we could run by them? And, or they just don't wanna see that? Would that be something,
We've been chatting about it.
Yeah,
so.
we've got a few people.
are they on board with something, that procedure?
We haven't talked directly with them, but Frank said, we had a meeting this morning, we were just, or I said yesterday, sorry, we were chatting about it.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
And that would literally just be a extra piping in the ground, snake it around, letting it blend before it comes back into the system.
It'd be some valving at the street, so the water coming into well 3 would be basically coming from the treatment side and the Red Mill side of the town.
Yeah.
The water would then blend with what's coming out of the ground at well 3. Well 3 would utilize the existing pipe that goes to the distribution system, and instead of blending both ways, going left and right, it would only take a left going out, so it would go the other side of town and go around. So because we are so close to that 20 PPT number, we exceeded by 1 part per trillion on the last quarter.
Still.
Even though some of the months are higher, it matters what the average is for that quarter. And we see the numbers there fluctuate. Typically in the summertime, they go higher. And that's what we've seen for the past 2 years. So it doesn't look like it would take that much blended water to get a steady number to come in
Yeah.
with PFAS 6 below the 20.
It doesn't sound like a very complicated or expensive fix either.
It would
Or
be
am I
the
wrong about
cheapest
that?
option if it works.
Yeah,
So we're definitely going to do everything we can to design it and implement it, get some samples taken, and then take all that data and provide it to DEP and see what we come up with.
So to put valves on that's the AC pipe on Newland. Just have to deal with that.
We have existing valves that are there, and based on my memory, I haven't had a chance to get out to the site yet. We looked at some mapping that Weston and Sampson had provided us with, based on our flushing distribution map. If the valves are true to the way that they show on the plans, it would basically require one 2-inch tap to be made on the AC pipe, saddle tap, curb stop, and then running a line 530 feet from the main to the well. The existing valves could be used for isolation purposes, the existing hydrant could be used for flushing. So it doesn't seem like there's that much work to do just to try this. And then if it looks like it's going to work, we would switch over to a semi-permanent installation and run it. So it's definitely something that's worth trying.
Yeah.
DEP
Sounds
hasn't
like it.
given us the flat out no. They frowned upon some of the other ideas that we've come up with, but this one kind of piqued their interest a little bit,
Yeah.
so it's definitely worth spending some time to try. All the while,
That's a good idea, I think.
while we work on a permanent solution or the next step. Whether it be a filtration facility there, which we don't have the room for, so we'd be looking at possibly putting it on land across the street that we have. We talked about options of putting some type of facility in with a discharge to the sanitary sewer for the effluent to waste. That's going to be a problem. If it's not now, it will be in the near future. Where that water would then go to the MFN, and they're also dealing with the PFAS removal issues
Yeah.
in the wastewater. So we definitely don't want to do something that's going to shoot ourselves in the foot a year down the road. So we've talked a lot in the past week. We've had quite a few meetings and stuff about it. and continue to move forward as we can.
So,
Yeah, I went through a lot of that, that was pretty good.
so we have a land across from the well on the other side of Newland Street?
We own some land over there, not directly across, but if you, I guess between the entrance to Red Mill Village and our entrance to the well, it's across the street. I don't know exactly how large the parcel is or what we could possibly build over there, but the biggest constraint with well 3 being that it's non-filtered is we'd first have to remove the iron and manganese before you could do anything with PFAS. So to set up anything similar to what we have for the green sand plant, it would be best to have drying lagoons or beds like we have over way out in front of well 4. That's so far away from the wells, it's outside of the zone 1 and the zone 2 protection areas, which we don't have that option at well 3. The footprint is very tight and very small. So the potential would be maybe something could be built across the street, plumbed directly to that and then into the system. We've also looked at options of directly plumbing well 3, a raw water main from well 3 to the water treatment facility that we have now. Very expensive.
That's a long way,
water
isn't it?
main.
It is. It could possibly wrap into a water main replacement and improvement project on Burke Street, because that is something we talked about before. If you're gonna dig up that road once to replace the AC pipe and the services, you could run a double main and run it that way instead of going down 123 to Leonard Street. So there's a lot on the table. You know, nothing's really set in stone. We'd have to look at some numbers and see what the best options are. I believe we had talked about possibly having some type of executive session in the next few weeks to go over a lot of this instead of unfortunately wasting the people's time.
Yeah.
Just to get some thoughts on it. I know you have a lot of background on it, Steve. I know Mr. Bernstein is well versed in it. And you know, James has the other aspect of the environmental point of it. So there's definitely a lot that each board member would have to put in to come up with a decision on what we all feel is best. And
Good.
so we'll work on that. I know Tara and I have some time coming off this month, and so it may actually roll into January. Let's see if we can do something with that. You wanna take the lead and copper, Johnny, please?
Yeah, we are working on our lead and copper sampling. I don't think we're probably gonna get to 60 samples. We've talked to DEP about it. Just doesn't seem, we have a combination of samples becoming invalid because of people having point of entry filters, and other people just don't want to fill up the bottle. So we're gonna have to look at expanding the sampling list. There's really not a ton of houses that fit into the year window. What is it, 83 to 85, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we were also talking about homes with lead goosenecks and pigtails count as a tier 1 now, and so we're gonna assess our options with that. And we also are gonna try to get down to, at least hopefully this year, we could get down to 30 samples for lead and copper, which we had been at, but with wells 5 and 6 going on, it automatically triggered 60, and then we have other things coming down the pipe that are gonna do it again. But if we could get 1 year of 30 instead of having to do 60 twice, that would be nice. And also, EPA, while simultaneously lowering PFAS numbers to 4, is rolling out the lead service line compliance program. So we have to identify all our service lines, make sure they're non-lead. We don't think we have any full lead service lines in town. We have some pigtails and some Galvy and other things, but so we'll be working on all that and hopefully getting a head start on that coming up this winter. Yeah.
October?
Yep.
Yeah, October 24, it's
So.
due by.
I mean, thankfully, we have a lot of information from service, I mean, you know, main replacements and things like that, but we have some older parts of town that we still have to do some digging and fact finding. And I mean, luckily, South Worcester Street, we're gonna be replacing that, so that's a much older section that could have it, you know. And luckily, the old, like some of the old stuff probably doesn't have it either. It's, you have to be in that
Yeah,
sweet
it is,
spot,
yeah.
so. Yep.
So EPA wants you to, they want you to go get in that range, the 83 to 85 range.
No, so that is for DEP sampling. EPA is forcing everyone, the whole country, they want lead out of drinking water entirely, especially when it comes to the municipal providing of water.
Which
You know,
is,
if it's-
which is kind of hypocritical too, because the ones that you're testing, you're just testing the device you're sampling from. You know, you're testing the solder, the lead
Exactly.
solder
Exactly.
that's in the device. It's not coming from your water, the town water.
Right. So,
You're using common sense.
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, how a
Sorry.
point of entry, like
My
we
bad.
talked with Tara and Ben about how a point of entry filter affects the lead that's in the person's house, I don't understand, but, so, we're gonna have to eventually get rid of all of our lead pigtails and
Get the lead out?
goosenecks and, exactly. So,
There's gonna be a lot of footwork required
Yeah.
for that, physically getting into homes,
Oh, yeah.
taking pictures
Insane.
of the lines before and after the meter, excavating the curb stop to determine the line that we provide to the curb stop and the line that the customer has. And they're looking for a second point of confirmation, which would be more than likely digging up the corp to verify that you have copper coming out of the main or you have the lead gooseneck. So just that alone in itself, you know, do you think of the amount of time it takes to set up a dig, the police details, traffic control, the amount of money that's going to be spent on that could be allocated towards the replacement of that main if you identify it based on age or, you know, whatever other records you have. It just seems like you could spend your time wisely and use the money and appropriate it a little bit differently than what they're requiring.
and not that it's come out of nowhere, I mean, we've known about this for a while, but we've also known PFAS was coming and working, I mean, it's just, they bring down all of these new requirements all at one time that all cost millions of dollars to fix. It's like, I don't know how they expect everyone to pay for it, but,
It's always been that way,
so.
right?
You get ebbs and flows, but yeah.
It seems to come in
It's a few
waves,
years here and there.
unfortunately. But yeah, they've always got something waiting.
They don't consider the big picture about, you know, the fact that one has to appropriate the money and
Mhm.
get the money and actually do it before one
Yeah.
could actually implement.
And they
implement
put us in charge of this, but they don't give us any real teeth to go after fixing internal lead issues. You know, if a house has lead in it and it's sky high, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We can tell them what they should do,
Right, but that's
they-
not
You can run your pH at
yeah,
nine.
including the town's own schools. You know, I mean, if the DEP wants the level to be at 0 in the school, you got schools in town that are 60, 70 years old, well, guess what?
It's not gonna be-
We can't force them to change their plumbing, so.
Just wanted to touch base about the Balfour Farm development. We've talked about that numerous times in previous meetings. I believe both peer reviews have been completed. We did not get it in the agenda, so there is no possibility of making a vote or a discussion on it tonight. We do want to put them on the next meeting, providing hopefully we have a full board. Like to actually have a formal vote at the next meeting to approve the acceptance of the plans based on the comments and the peer review and everything. One road there has been installed, the water main's been installed, hydrants and services have been installed, pressure tested. I haven't seen the sample results back yet. We assume that they're going to pass. It was done in a very short run, so I don't see any reason why they'd be denied for that.
So that cul-de-sac is done?
It's actually the first one is a single street, not a cul-de-sac.
Okay,
So the first one goes in and it actually goes cross-country. They are gonna be working on making the Bridge Street connection. They were possibly doing some work out there last week, I don't know how far they've made it. But the first stretch went pretty good. There's a few things, there was one hydrant that needs to be replaced. It might have been struck by a loader or something, so that was isolated and will be tested
Got the right
in the
pipe?
next section.
so you got the right?
They had the right pipe, it was installed, and it appears everything worked really good down there.
Good.
Wanted to ask the board if they felt an actual written MOA was necessary for this. Many, many years ago, back with Red Mill Village and some of the other larger developments, the board would have the town's attorney draft a written MOA to go over everything. Obviously, it goes into great detail. This is kind of an intermediate-sized project. You know, we've had many smaller ones come before us that haven't required anything in writing. Just wanted to know now, because that would take a little bit of legwork to get that up and running.
What is MOA exactly?
Memorandum of agreement, so it would
Okay.
typically list basically the sizes of the connections, the fees associated with it, how many houses, water, sewer. It would list if the board had agreed to alter or waive any fees for any reason, whether it be, you know, improvements that were given to the town, or you know, an extension that was added above and beyond. Basically what it does is it puts in writing, and you get obviously 2 signatures from the builder and from the board, that not only are those monies owed, but it's a certain amount of sewer capacity is allocated to that project. And
To me, it kind of makes sense to do with MOA.
Yeah, that
And
sounds
to me,
like it
I'd be
protects
more comfortable
everybody.
with, even though I know this is a smaller project, but I mean, it would just, is this gonna halt any kind of process or anything? Because I know he was in a hurry, and I know he laid down the infrastructure first, and I know and that's in, so that was his biggest fight, I'm sure.
I don't see it halting anything as far as them moving forward. They have the information from the peer review from both water and sewer. We've been on site inspecting everything that's been installed. The only thing that it would delay would be us receiving payment for the work that's been connected to our systems. And that is something that could be something that gets talked about at
Why
the
would that
next
force a
meeting.
delay in payment?
What's that?
Why would it force a delay in payment?
We'd want to make sure that the MOA is written specifically.
Okay.
If there was any agreement to waive a fee for any reason, it would have to be indicated in the MOA. We wouldn't want to draft it and then go back and amend it.
Yeah.
Um,
And this would all be in addition to if we just wanted to approve the plans?
Yes, this would be along with that.
Yeah.
Like a typical connection, you calculate the fee, I mean, you can calculate the fee from your regs based on,
Yeah, we
you
can
know,
come up
the
with,
flows, you know, how many
Yeah.
connections there are and
But
all
we
that.
haven't waived any fees yet, right?
No,
we have not, there's been
Okay.
no vote on it.
no, there's been no discussion.
We had the vote
waive
to
it.
proceed,
Right.
which allowed him to get his construction before winter. He has a base pavement down now, so he's very happy about that. You know, this would just be an additional step to it, so.
So if we did this, will we still be voting on the plans next meeting, and then this would come after, or?
You could vote to approve, and more than likely, we'd want to have him here in case he has any questions,
Right,
or
right.
if you want to open up the floor to any questions, you know, at that point.
A lot of the stuff in the MOA would establish some of the stuff that's already been addressed in terms of how you want them to build it. And a lot of the times, the MOA, if they're doing off-site work, the MOA is, like, you might want to do an MOA, consider even more heavily for the Mansfield Ave piece where they're
Mhm.
going to extend that gravity sewer, and there's going to be some costs, you know, they're going to incur costs
Right,
to build
right.
that. I'm just wondering, like Frank said, this one's kind of in that middle area. It's more than just, you know, a house connecting or one building, you know, one commercial building. But I think the biggest thing would be if there was going to be any discussion of paying over time or doing the payment different. If they're just going to pay, if you're just going to bill them and not entertain paying it over time, because your regs say you got to pay it before, technically, before you start building.
Paying it over
Right, but you
time.
guys, because they wanted to get in before the
What's
winter.
paying it over time? What do you mean?
You could go into a payment plan like upon occupancy, like
You've never
he
done
might
that
come back,
before?
so you don't, so that might have been part of one of the bigger agreements, you know. It wasn't, but it could have been at like 274 East, where they had a lot going on over there. The fee was significant, I think in the end, because they built infrastructure that supported the town a little bit. It didn't end up being, I don't think they ended up coming up with a payment plan. But that is where you could do when phase one goes under construction, you pay 25%, and then, you know, as soon as you have occupancy of phase one, you pay another 25, or there could be phases of, that's how you would have a payment plan. I don't see it being something for this personally. I don't think it goes to that level. So I just think it's worth discussing. So if you do the MOA, you would, and so I showed Frank a couple of them. You guys used to have, the commission used to have Joe Cove
Yep.
as an attorney for the commission.
Yep.
He helped with the Norton Glen one, when Norton Glen tied in. And then after that, more recently, the 274 East Main, it was Copman and Page with Alana Quirk
Right.
through Copman and Page, because you guys, I think, were told to use town council instead of your own council. So we have those two agreements as examples, but if you go that route, I guess it would be going to Copman and Page through the town and asking them to draft something up, if you go that route. Not to complicate it anymore, but. like
No,
you said,
I'm just more
it's
comfortable with the MOA, to be honest with you. I think having stuff down, written in front of me, and knowing that what's gonna be going on, what needs to be adhered to.
And this is something they're requesting us to do anyway, right? Is
No,
that
I
how it
wanted
came
to
up,
know
or-
if the board wanted to enter into
Oh,
it,
okay,
just
okay.
because this is kind of a medium
Yeah.
sized project, you know, that we haven't had in quite some time.
So has the developer asked for a waiver of fees?
No. He hasn't
has
been
he
charged
asked?
yet either.
Has he asked, does he have any idea what the fees are?
We've provided him a copy of what our fees are way back at the beginning.
We're not gonna turn anything on until the fees are paid, right? Is that-
That's
so-
my
so-
understanding.
yeah.
I would not,
Yep.
I've turned it to flush and fill and
Mm.
pressure test, but it's not
Yep.
physically going to be active to the property.
Okay.
So
Yep.
there's no risk
Yeah.
And he's-
involved
But he is
on our
trying,
end.
but the mains of, the streets are gonna be accepted ways, right? We think.
We believe that they're being built to be accepted by the town.
Okay. And that way the water mains will end up being ours.
Correct.
So it will be our infrastructure.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll reach out to KPN and get that rolling.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay. Very good. I think that was it. Did I miss anything, John?
Generators,
Did I have that down?
Generator updates.
I do
It's on the
not.
agenda.
What'd you say?
well, the Holly Road temporary generator, that was one, isn't an issue anymore, so. That was
No.
when it was put on the agenda, but.
Yeah, so we had the two ARPA-funded generators, Knollwood and Holly Road. Knollwood and Holly are both in place, but they're not operational because we don't have gas services to the locations. We did sign, was it last week? I signed the road opening permit for Knollwood for the gas company. So they are moving forward with it, obviously weather permitting. I've seen nothing on Holly Road, which is the one we would rather have first, but we can't control that. The contractor was out was it the transfer switch they wired? They were out to do some work at both
Yes.
stations a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
We
Yes, the transfer.
wanted to verify that both of the backup systems at each location worked after they left, making sure that any connections they did didn't disconnect anything that we have to still have in place. The generator motor at Knollwood worked flawlessly. Our tow-behind generator that went down to Holly Road wouldn't work at all. So, just Murphy. So we had the technician come out, oddly enough, somehow a circuit board came unplugged while the unit was in transit,
Mm.
and it was plugged in, and
That's good.
that is
Yep.
working again. We did have another generator issue at 157 Mansfield Ave that still is not resolved. Oddly enough, it's blowing fuse, and the fuse that it's losing tells the phase monitor if it has line power or not. So it's a very dangerous situation. The transfer switch comes on, it wants to transfer the generator over thinking it doesn't have line power, so we physically
Okay.
have that off, and we will respond, you know, as we get any other generator calls, and manually go there and through both switches until that gets taken care of. So oddly enough, just a weird, strange turn of events.
At least we can use it though, right?
Yeah.
if we need to.
It works,
Yeah.
it just wants to work all the time.
Yeah.
So there will be some bills coming in for that at some point.
All right.
That was it, right?
I think so.
Us? You ready?
What about them?
You want Mr. Valentine's? Guys, come on up. Just,
Where's up?
yeah, well,
Wherever you live.
Maybe over here?
Wherever you like.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry Valentine, a lifelong resident of Norton, and part owner of Valentine Tool and Stamping on 171 West Main Street. And this is my brother, also part owner.
Hi.
Mostly a lifelong resident of Norton, now in Mansfield. Thank you for having us here tonight and allowing us to speak and present this to you. Also, before I get going, thank you. Someone from the Water Department dropped off a notice today telling us that our recent usage of water has been extraordinarily high. And the reason for that is one of the reasons, or part of the reasons I'm here tonight. We had some contamination in our septic field from a chemical solvent being dumped into the septic system via a sink or a toilet or something in years past. And we had our groundwater, ground sampling of the area around the septic field tested, and they found traces of TCE, which is a industrial solvent. So we filed a report, or we worked in conjunction with a third-party environmental firm. We've filed the necessary documentation with the DEP, and we're undergoing remediation for that. Right now, we just finished a major expensive phase of the remediation. And I won't go into too much detail, but basically, the option for remediation was to inject emulsified vegetable oil into the earth at various levels down to the bedrock in a pre-designated area. So that was just completed a week ago, 2 weeks ago Friday, and the result now is weight. We periodically will have to test the ground. We have sample wells, and hopefully over time, what they've done will remediate the problem. And the emulsified vegetable oil, what it basically does is it breaks down the TCE to a less harmful or a more benign chemical element. So over time, this injection supposedly will break it down. And it's not 100% guaranteed, but hopefully it'll work, because the cost of this remediation was, needless to say, very, very expensive, very, very hurtful for our company. So with that said, one of the options we had for remediation was a hot thermal injection of chemicals. But as we were told, this would probably destroy the septic field. And due to that fact, and due to the fact that it was quite a bit more expensive than the option we did choose, the only advantage being that the total process would have been shortened by a factor of several. So right now, we're hoping that now that the injections are done, there'll be I think a 3-month interval where they'll start taking groundwater or ground samples, testing it, sending the results, sending the samples to the lab, getting results, and hopefully that'll show the emulsified vegetable oil is doing what it's supposed to do. And then every 6 months thereafter, they'll continue to test for a period of 3 to 5 years. And hopefully,
hopefully after 3, it'll be determined that the process and this remediation will be doing what it's supposed to do. So, with that said, one of the thoughts was that if this was unsuccessful and we had to go to the hot thermal option and destroy our septic field, it would be helpful if there were a septic line running on 123. I know it has been recently extended to the Speedway gas station home. So we're here tonight just to inquire as to what would be involved in extending the line further up 123 westward towards Attleboro. Now, I've been told, I think by someone in town government who's no longer there, that the ultimate goal will be someday to extend the line all the way to the Attleboro line. I don't know if that's true or not, but I guess that's the,
To
you know,
North Worcester
the
Street.
ultimate goal.
North
Yeah.
Worcester.
North Worcester Street is what the comprehensive wastewater management plan establishes. So not quite to the Attleboro line, but all the way
Close.
down to where North Worcester and South Worcester comes
Okay.
to.
Right, and then you have the hill, so that
There's a couple of them, yeah.
Right. Right. So, the reason we're here tonight is just to get a feel for what's involved. Even if we were involved as far as partially funding it, you know, what would it take to get it from senior living up to our facility, which is zoned industrial? And I would estimate it's about a third of a mile.
That's it, I was thinking maybe a quarter. It's not that far, but it's
Right.
2 or 3 houses and businesses.
I had also heard that, and I don't know if this is true, that currently the middle school has a line that taps into the sewer line, a small line from the middle school. I don't know if that's true or not. So is there an existing sewer line that, albeit small, that,
There's a Force main. So there was so the last project actually took the Yale School and the high school further up on
Mhm.
West Main Street. So those had pump stations and were pumping back to the treatment plant at the middle school.
okay.
So when we connected those two to the new sewer, those two buildings, so now they're connected to a sewer that's in front of them in West Main Street that flows down to Wheaton College. So that line that they used to pump through down to the middle school is not in use. So there's a line that in Route 123, and the intent is that at some point the middle school can decommission their treatment plant and put a pump station in and use that line to pump up to the sewer system at the housing complex.
So the line is idle?
Right now, yeah.
Stands down?
Yeah. So basically, when they replaced the water main out there, they slip lined the old abandoned water main with a 4-inch diameter pipe to
Mhm.
be used for that purpose.
Okay. Well, I'll add the notice that of the high usage, the emulsified vegetable oil has to be mixed with water. So the whole process took 3 weeks. So I can imagine what our water bill will be for those 3 weeks. It's probably going to be extraordinary. But it had to be done. So they were running, you know, a line from the outside tap, you know, 8 hours a day for 3 weeks. So, but it's good that we got the notice because it notified us that there could be a leak in the system. So if there was a leak in the system, it would have been great to, you know that there was a problem, or someone had turned the faucet on at night and walked away, which,
It
sure,
happens.
yeah, that happens. So anyway, at some point, it may be something that would be a benefit to us in regards to remediation of the contamination problem in our septic field. But also, just for selfish purposes, it would probably increase the value of our industrial property. We've been paying a lot of taxes for many, many years on a lot of surrounding property, or adjacent property to the building, and
Yeah, you got a pretty good sized area there.
There is a good, yeah, about half of it's wetland, but it's, so we don't have any specific intentions. We've had the land surveyed in, for boundary and for wetland, because we're not getting any younger. This has been our livelihood. What's that? Especially you. So, yeah, my brother had a stroke 2 years ago,
Yeah, I
so.
got aphasia, so I'm letting him do all the speaking.
Well, but, so we want to throw that out there and get some feedback from you folks as to what's involved and, you know, what the town may have as plans, if there are any, and if not, what would it take to get this thing kicked off or
Steve,
initiated?
what's the timeline on that phase of, like, future of
The
going up there? Is
versus
it
of-
5-10 years ahead of us?
We had
or-
talked about doing, like 5-year increments,
Yeah,
and that phase would be the next, consider the next phase, but things have moved around, like right now we're looking at Elm Street with the issues that are going on up there.
right.
So ultimately, you know, so the town went forward with the municipal extension in the section of West Main Street from Route 140 up to where it ends now
Mhm.
at the Woodland Meadows complex across from the gas station there. And then, you know, I guess if and when the town has an appetite for another municipal extension, you know, this board could seek town meeting approval to go for the next sewer extension, which is the plan. It's just, you know, I think, you know, some of the, you know, with all the ledge that was accounted on the previous job, the cost of the job and how long it took and all of that, waiting a little bit before we go back out into that animal. And it will only get approved at town meeting with overwhelming support and a plan on how much it's gonna cost everybody in order to do that.
So the last extension was municipally funded? Was there any private
So
funding?
it has to get approved at town meeting. So yes, it's municipally funded, but, you know, so there was a lot that went into that. So the biggest driver behind that project was the Woodland Meadows was going to build a treatment plant, and they had a grant. They had some grant monies to do that, and they approached the commission and said they could use those grant monies towards the sewer if the commission, you know, would work to extend the sewers up, they could share. So they took a decent piece of the cost with that grant, and then by tying in the high school and the Yale school, the school, so the town, but through the school budget, paid for a portion of that project because it was a problem. They were mandated that they had to find another solution to no longer transport it down to the treatment plant at the middle school. The middle school plant really couldn't handle the flow that it was getting from all the different schools. So a combination of that, and then everybody else fronted along the way was assessed a betterment.
Okay.
So every fronted property shared in the cost also. And that was the combination of numbers that paid for that project.
Even though they may not have tied in?
Correct. I mean, so yes. So by assessing betterments, it's just by being fronted by the sewer, they were assessed a betterment. They can pay it up front or over 20 years. You know, they can pay it up front in full, or it gets leaned on their taxes if they choose to just wait and let it be apportioned over time with interest.
Is that a fixed fee, or is it based on property size or?
Frontage.
So we didn't do it on frontage, we did it on unit based, so flow based. So they call it the uniform unit method. So we took one cost unit was equivalent to a single family residential home, so which is like 330 gallons a day based on Title V. So so there are residential properties along the way, so they were, you know, if they were a single family home, they were 1 unit, a duplex was 2 units, and then commercial properties based on their actual water use were translated into, you know, 3 units, 2 units, however many equivalent units it was.
Now, if that, I don't know if this is feasible, but could a line be privately funded,
So yes,
an extension?
I mean, that's what we're talking about, coming up Route 140. So,
Yeah.
the, whatever, so if you wanted to look into extending it, and it sounds like it's not too far from where it is now, it would need to be consistent with the town's future plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it couldn't, so if the plan was to run a gravity sewer down, which I think it is, because we're at a high point now where we are, you're downgrading from where it is, so you couldn't just run gravity
Wouldn't be
into
a
that
gravity
existing
feed.
sewer. I think you would have to pump. And I think the plan is, in the future phase, I don't remember where, but there's another pump station wherever the low point is as you head from where the sewer is now towards the middle school and beyond. There's a low point in there somewhere where there would be a pump station. So if you needed to extend it to your property, I think, you could look at, the town would want to see the piece, at least from where it is now to your property, to be such that the other properties could tie in, that get fronted, and that they could pick it up and continue the extension in, consistent with their plan in the future. You wouldn't have to go beyond your property, and then there would just be the cost of that
And-
extension.
Would the betterment fee for all the properties in between, would that be something that the town, that goes to the town?
So if it's not, so the betterments are for municipal
Yeah.
extensions. If it's privately extended, the town can't assess betterments
Mhm.
to those people. So it's handled differently then. They don't have to tie in if it's not a municipal project, but they can choose to tie in.
Would there be any way for a private extension to recoup some of that money through?
Yep.
Through.
There are ways to work that out.
Mhm.
That's what we're talking about on Mansfield Ave.
Is
So
it-
yes, I mean, you could work with the other property owners
Mhm.
along the way to share in the cost.
Is there a general rule of thumb for cost per foot? I mean, I know the ledge on this last extension was an issue, and that created some cost overruns. But as far as the middle school to where we are, at least, or maybe even further, if there's already a small line in there, is it known what the ground conditions are as far as ledge? Because that's been excavated, I take it, in the past. So,
There's some information in the existing trenches, yeah. Which we had information in the other trenches, the ledge is very discriminate. It does what it wants.
Right.
It comes and goes.
it pops up where you
Yeah.
least expect it.
So there is information in the previously disturbed corridors, which there's quite a bit of utility work in that road out there, obviously being the commercial district that it is.
But is there a ballpark figure that you almost can plan?
It-
There's a range between, $100,000 and $200,000 per.
We're using numbers like $500 a foot right
Mhm.
now, especially because you're in a state highway too, so there's costs associated with that, with resurfacing the state highway.
State's gotta eat too.
Yeah.
Oh, we know that.
It ranges so much. It's a day, you play with fire a little bit when you try and just put a cost per foot to a project, because you're digging up the ground, and it's not just in one location, it's over a length. Everything is dependent upon what's under the ground.
But does that typically cover, detail costs, repaving costs,
That's what that number is intended to cover, yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be an all-inclusive
pipe,
number.
the pipe,
Yep.
costs and all that? Okay. So so where does the town stand now? You said every 5 years it's up for reconsideration, or that's the?
It's up to the commission when the next time they want to put forth an article for the next sewer extension.
This commission?
This commission, yep,
Mhm.
yep.
What generally brings that onto your radar?
Things like this.
Yeah, things like
Definitely,
this.
definitely are put to it. And I will say that right now on the radar is Elm Street. So we are designing a sewer extension right now, and would be looking to go to town meeting for the town to approve construction of that section. And there are other things, you know, that are driving it, you know, driving that.
Would any consideration for the state making road improvements accelerate? In other words, if you knew the state was gonna repave, it doesn't make any sense, obviously, to,
Yeah, either you're gonna wait another 5 years for the
Right.
moratorium, or you're gonna get out in front of it. So yes, if we do, that would be taken into consideration if the state approached the commission and said they were getting ready to.
so I
To do
should
some
pray for
improvements.
potholes and
So do we know the state's intention of that stretch?
They
Would we know?
We could call and try and find out what the plans are for District 5 moving forward. They've had issues with drainage there for many, many years that they don't seem to address. So I don't see them doing any paving or road reconstruction there until they address those problems. They've been notified multiple times of some of the flooding and the area concerns that we've had by both us and the highway department. I can definitely reach out and see if there's anything in their crystal ball about when they might be looking to do something here in town, but they also tend to lean on the towns doing work, and then they can come in and basically dictate what needs to be done, just like they did with the project when we installed the sewer. They requested special pavement to be put down, anything that was excavated, as far as drainage, pipes, manholes, anything like that. If you went near it or you removed it, you had to replace it with new standard materials, which were far different and far more expensive than what was existing in the ground. So they benefit from projects like that, or projects like you're possibly thinking about doing yourself.
you get to upgrade everything to current
If you
standards.
see it, you upgrade it, unfortunately, is the way it
Right.
gets looked at. So that's a lot of the unknowns that happen. We come across a few drainage pipes and manholes that were completely paved over, they didn't even know were there. We found them, we own them, we had to replace them and pay for it. So, very, very unique situation. But the benefit to having a privately funded installed upgrade compared to a municipally funded is actually gonna be the people that are fronted by it. If it's funded by the municipality, you are required to connect to that system within 7 years based on the town meeting vote. That doesn't sit well with a lot of residents. Something that's privately funded, typically the only point that you would be required to tie in is when your Title V system fails. There's a lot of things that can trigger that if you're looking to do an addition to your home, and it would mean that you have to expand your existing septic system. That would not be allowed, you'd be required to tie in at that point. So it's not just a failure point. Expansions and things like that will also trigger those connections, but it's a lot better for the town resident not to have that deadline looming over them.
Yeah. You definitely have a lot less people fighting it if it's
Yeah.
privately funded as part, especially in West Main Street where people have a negative attitude towards that last project.
So if for hypothetical situation, if we were able to privately fund it, and there's a couple commercial enterprises across the street, there's Goat City, that building, it's a multi-tenant building, and there's Norton Automotive, which is now Amco, I believe. If they want to take advantage of that tie-in, because as I understand it, the Norton Automotive doesn't even have a septic system. I think it's a closed tank that has to be periodically pumped out. But there's only generally one or two people working in that facility, so it's probably not a huge issue.
Yeah.
But if they were to tie in, or if the property owners of the Goat City complex, if their system failed, would there be anything in it for us as far as them wanting to tie in? Again, I don't know if it goes back to the betterment fee or...
You could probably come up with an agreement for them to help fund it, but as far as after you construct it and the town takes it over,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't.
Okay.
I'm not, Steve probably knows specifics.
Well,
but-
once the town takes it over, then the people have 7 years to tie in, right?
If it's municipally funded. If it's private and gifted to the town, then it's usually at a point of failure.
And that gets back to the wording of that article.
shouldering
Yeah.
the burden, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
um,
There's a fairness element that has to be addressed. And I think if you go forward with something, there would be a memorandum of agreement, like the commission was talking about earlier, for these developments. And I think that's language that needs to be worked out, you know, if and when these other people come in, who gets the money? You know, if these other people are gonna pay. And I think that, you know, the carrot for you when you're building it is, if and when the town makes it municipal, you're gonna then get hit with your connection fee, and it's gonna be, you know, right now, if you were to pay it, it would be this. If you come in now,
Right, if he doesn't do it and you wait for the town to do it, then.
yeah, if you come in now, you
You're on the hook
know,
for
this is
that.
what
right.
we would negotiate with
An
you to get you in
some
now
type
and
of
help us,
incentive.
but if you wait, it will cost you more.
So
Like
he
in
can,
anything, it'll
he can
cost you
negotiate
more
with
if you wait.
them a fee from them to him that's.
Upfront,
You know, a
yeah.
fraction of whatever the betterment would be.
It's
or-
just all part of the negotiation, yeah. I mean, I feel that's how it works. But I think all of the language about who would have the ability to collect fees would be covered in a memorandum of agreement between the parties.
So what can you recommend we leave with tonight? Just the general information in which we discussed?
I mean, the commission can provide what the future layout of the sewer on West Main Street is, how it, you know, how they envision it, and everything is very planning level, but where the gravity sewers are supposed to be, which way they are intended to flow. You know, we have figures that show the proposed future. You can take a look at what it looks like, you know, and where you are in that plan. Again, the timing is kind of, you know, they're not locked into any kind of time frame to do anything. It's when it makes sense.
But the
And
Elm
when is the
Street
time right?
project would probably take precedence.
That is, right now, is in the queue, yeah. So
Mhm.
that one is happening, at least from a design point. The town has not voted to support construction of it yet. They haven't been asked to.
But if that does occur, then we're looking at another maybe 5 years beyond that.
Potentially.
Mhm. Nothing would prompt it to happen sooner? Especially.
The middle school's treatment plant totally failing,
Right.
possibly.
So there are other, you know, so the schools the schools are interested in getting out of the wastewater treatment business altogether.
Mhm.
So there is, you know, that is a parallel discussion right now with the schools.
And they are very close by. I think their property abuts our property.
So you're near so are you, so coming from the Woodland Meadows property down, are you before the middle school? If you
We
know-
are
Yeah.
before the middle school.
Before.
But right before the middle school.
Correct.
Through the back, through the woods.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, there's a soccer field or a ball field, a short distance through the
There's
woods.
a car wash and everything in
think,
between.
Yeah.
From our
Yeah.
property.
Goat City is right there, they're before that, on towards east.
They're before
So
the
I
cemetery.
think, so the schools are the best option, because we are working on a feasibility study with the schools about turning that treatment plant into a pump station. I don't know how aggressive they are in that plan, but that is
Mhm.
something. And if you abut that property, there could be, there's the ability for you to get to that pump station potentially would be a lot easier
Going
than,
the other way.
than coming the other
Cross-country.
way.
Right.
Cross-country line.
So, there's something there. We've been talking about it for a couple of years now,
Mhm.
but it is moving. It is something that could be happening. That's probably your best chance.
Okay.
That would
Yeah,
be
then you're not cutting the road. Right?
potentially, I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
Depending on wetlands and stuff.
Yeah.
and you have to
Yeah,
work with the
possibility to get it
school
right away.
department, yeah. Or if you are, it would be a short stretch down the road to get into the school property.
Right, it's probably another 200 yards, 250 yards down the road.
Ideally, if the property's abut and there are no wetlands and it doesn't adversely affect what the school is doing with the property, you know, going
Right.
cross-country. If
Okay.
you know where the treatment plant is now, in relation to you, it's out in the back, I think.
So is this something that we have been asked before? On, a user coming in and asking us to explore this?
Not this particular piece of property, but other properties.
No, other
yes.
properties.
Yep.
So how do we, I mean, can we authorize Weston and Sampson to spend an hour or two working with them to come up with a plan? Is that something that we can do?
I have no objection to that. That's something the board would like to do. I think it's a good idea. There
I'd
is-
rather us
We can end
to
up with a
plan,
super- yeah.
help plan it as opposed to you hiring somebody else to do it. It doesn't make any sense. We have the big picture in mind.
Now, this is something, if the vegetable oil thing works, you're not gonna go forward. This is only if that doesn't work, right?
Well, it's multi-layered.
Or is it something you still
It
would
provides-
consider wanting to
There's the
do?
value it provides to your property
Okay,
to have
okay.
the sewer.
Right, yeah.
So A, if your septic system fails, you definitely,
Yeah.
Screwed.
if you have to remove the septic system, then you need another
Well,
solution.
then you weigh the cost of.
The cost of building a new
replacing the
system
Septic system,
versus,
but if there are future plans, you'd want
Yeah.
to avoid that. I don't know what a new septic system would cost, but it might be comparable or at least approaching the cost of extending the sewer line. So
Yep.
the option obviously would be to extend the sewer line. Well, that would be our
How big is
preference.
your septic system? How many gallons a day do you use on average?
Well, our employee base has gone down. Well, right now, there's 15 employees, but that system was designed for, I don't know, at one time, we had probably maybe 80 employees in
Oh, wow.
that factory. So we had, at one time, we had 2 shifts with about 80 total employees, give or take. So it's a pretty big system. But I don't know if I think it's based on square footage, the size of
Yeah,
the
there's a-
septic system,
there's a
the number of
formula.
bathrooms,
No, not bathroom. Normally people in square feet of their building.
right.
for your
So-
type of use, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's probably a significantly sized system.
Yeah, you could be looking at a lot of money for a replaced septic system,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
So if we had our druthers, it would make more sense to, option A versus, that type of option. So, well,
What do you think?
did you have any
I think it's a
questions?
good
Tom?
option.
I think it's a good, yeah, I
I
like
think
it.
it's gonna benefit us too, as a town as a whole. Because we're gonna go that way eventually.
So I don't know, what do you think? Think it makes sense to have you spend time?
We can talk about what, yeah,
And we have a consulting budget that we can pay this for, right? It's not like we have to create
We
something.
have a
right?
general service.
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Excuse me, also, is it all or none? I mean, can it be partially funded privately and partially funded municipally?
Well, first of all, you gotta figure out what you can do first, and then we'll figure out how to get there. Paying for it, I mean, it's kinda like you might have 1, 2, or 3 options.
Mm-hmm.
Some might be in public property, might be in public right of way, it may not be in all private property. I mean,
Yeah.
until you look at the,
You get to,
we don't really know where your septic system is, so that's a factor, or, where the, it doesn't matter where the septic system is, but how you're gonna connect to the building, that makes a factor.
If the
Connect.
school's even still falling through with that, they've had a change in leadership over there. So I'm not even sure if they're aware of
It's all-
the previous
it's all tricky, because then you
conversations.
get into where do you end to, just, then what about the next property? And the next property, and the
Yeah.
next property, it just never ends, but,
Well,
but.
you have to
but
start somewhere.
You do have to
you know.
start somewhere.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that you wanna do a small study with look at the options, the cost, and financing. Come up with the options.
I like that.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
nothing like you haven't done before.
No,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's
yeah.
how
Well,
we
just
do
to
everything.
what extent, yeah.
Been covered by Brian anyways, right? That's all pretty much covered
What?
in that corner.
I mean, as far as the wetlands
Yeah,
delineations.
He's already done all that.
Yeah, we have all that
So you
done
have-
within the last couple of years.
Okay,
And I think it's good for 5 years.
3.
Something.
3.
Is it 3?
But
Okay. Well,
Steve, if the middle school gets on the old pipe and starts coming back to West Street, and then eventually we go to that phase where we put sewer line in all the way to Charlie, would that stay that way, like a dedicated line, or would the middle school at that point nix that and go into the new sewer line?
No, I think the ultimate plan would probably be to make use of that pump station at the middle school to take on some flow from the immediate area.
Oh,
What we
okay.
can-
Okay.
What we're limited by is the 4-inch force main.
Okay.
There's only so much we can take. You know, I think the plan called for a pump station near the middle school with, I think, a 6-inch force main.
But if that all happened, that wouldn't tear up any of the road at all, right? That would all happen on the middle school property?
Right, so you could, yeah.
So if there was a way to get them a line from their property, like we just talked about.
Oh, yeah. No,
That
yeah.
keeps it completely off the road and then still leaves the option in the future for that phase to go on schedule.
Yeah.
Another thought.
So I don't know if we want to talk about this further on and then ask Western Sampson to come up with a proposal to work with them, or I don't even know if we need to do that. Maybe you have to give it some thought.
So we're already doing something for the schools to try and give them what their option is.
Well, what kind of timeline are you guys thinking if you wanted to pursue this? That you just wanting to know today if it's possible, or are you actually wanting to,
Yeah, this-
you know, in the
Yeah, this is.
within the
first-
next year actually proceed with this?
Well, this is the first foray into this,
Okay.
and we don't really have any specific timeline. I mean, obviously, the sooner the better, but we
Right,
haven't,
right.
we haven't picked a target date.
We're looking for options.
Yeah, yeah.
You gotta begin somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
this seems to be the time to do it.
Right.
So, I
So,
mean, you
so it would
know,
be prudent to grab their information
Yeah,
and then
Yeah,
we can
I
talk
think-
more about this.
yeah,
Think
we'll
about it.
we'll look at some stuff and some schematic,
so
schematics. of
what we're
it
saying
entails.
is, the town has a consulting agreement. Weston Sampson's our consulting engineer. We have a general consulting contract with them to do miscellaneous things for us. And this could fall under the miscellaneous things that we could have Weston Sampson work with you to come up with this, we'll call it feasibility report, or to figure out how to connect point A to point B. And then come up with a preliminary cost of what it's gonna cost, and a preliminary aspect of who's gonna pay for it.
That sounds like a good
And
start.
then we can bring it to the next level where we decide what to do and we implement. And you hire an engineer to do the design, and you go and permit it and go from there.
Mhm. Okay.
I mean, it kinda like logically makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep, we can do
I
that.
like it.
Well,
Do that.
Good
And
start.
if we have contact information, we might like access to that, the wetlands, like the plans that you,
Yeah,
whatever
the-
plans you
Mhm.
have, and the information would be helpful.
I actually have that electronic, like a CAD file.
Okay,
You
so
have a card you can give him,
yeah.
and he can then.
I
go
usually
from
carry
there.
one, but I don't, no.
You don't have a card?
It's in
Shame
my
on
car,
you.
it's in my car, I can get it.
Shame on you.
I can get it.
I'll be the intermediary.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your time, appreciate it. We kept you later than you probably normally.
No.
That's what we're here
No
for.
problem at all.
No, we appreciate it.
No, that's what you pay us the big bucks for.
And I gotta thank Steve. I reached out to Steve and he told me the details
You
of what I
did
had
the right
to do
thing.
to talk to you folks. So,
All right.
thank you, Steve, and thank you
Okay.
for your time.
You're welcome. Thank
Good to see
you.
you. We'll talk to you.
Steve, so
Thanks.
there's three
A lot of
Steves.
Steves.
Oh, okay.
Good job.
Steve,
Good job.
Steve,
I think it's the Patriot fan.
Yeah.
I'm a Patriots fan too, I just didn't want to
Okay.
switch.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank
Talk to you
again.
soon.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
We'll see you. Take care of yourself.
Thanks.
We'll see you
Thanks,
later.
Steve, yeah.
We'll talk to you soon.
See you on the basketball court?
Absolutely. I'll be one watching. I'm not playing anymore.
Good night.
Good night. That was interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It is interesting. You want me to do the sewer update?
Sure, why not?
He's on a roll.
Let me just keep going, yeah. And actually, so we had started talking about the generators, so Norwood and Holly, we did finally hear from the gas company, and now as Frank reported, so they finally called us back and said that they were gonna, yep, it was in their queue and they were gonna get it done, and now Frank has gotten the.
So the gas company showed up at
Paper.
Red Mill Village the other day. We've been trying to have our 152 gas meters raised up 18 inches to meet code. When it was National Grid, now they're Eversource or whatever else, somebody screwed it up when they built the silly thing. So anyways, 3 trucks showed up to start doing the 152 units. They sat in their truck for 3 hours.
Of course.
Yeah,
It's cold out.
No, this was on Friday when it was
Oh, it was
50-something
nice out,
degrees
right?
outside. I'm not even sure they did anything. I'm just saying that we were as frustrated as everybody else.
yeah.
I mean, we've been marked, the whole place has been dig safe like, I don't know, 50 times. There's been markings all over the place. But I'm just saying, it's very frustrating.
So we've made progress. We'll see.
Is that with both or just one?
So you have the information. Yeah, they called you. They opened a street opening permit for the one.
Yeah.
We haven't heard where Holly stands, but they're both. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to do them both at the same time, would it?
Why would it?
But anyway, we'll see what happens. But it's at least progress. Let's call it a positive, because we've heard from them, and it's in the queue. So as Frank said, they did go out there and they've installed the transfer switches, and so now we are just waiting for the gas to make the final hookup and be done. But they did submit, so the contractor submitted a pay application for the work that they did. So pay application number 5, $14,250. That leaves about $15,000 in the balance to finish. It's consistent with their scheduled values.
Who's this?
So this is,
Fall River?
no,
Arden.
Arden, couldn't think of it, the Arden Group that are doing Holly and Knollwood. So we're recommending payment of $4,250 to Arden Group. And I think that if you guys are in agreement, you would make the motion and then Frank can sign the payments. So I have this if somebody wants to make a
Okay.
motion.
Jim?
This is payment estimate number 5. Okay, so I move to approve payment estimate number 5 to the Ardent Group in the amount of $14,250 for the Knollwood and Holly Road pump station improvements.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need to vote for Frank to sign? You just-
Nope.
We already did
Frank
that.
can
Nope,
sign
you
it.
guys are-
He's already
So I don't know if
signed
you
it.
already
Yep,
printed them out, Frank,
I
but.
did not.
But here's 4 copies of it. So. However many you want. So that's Holly and Knollwood, Cobb Street. So phase 1, they are scheduled, so the final piece is to install that breaker. They are scheduled to install it on December 19th. So Frank, that's the one where they had asked if they could shut the Cobb Street station down for an hour,
Mhm.
and they were told they could not, so my understanding is they came out last Friday. I didn't hear the results of it, but
I did
the
not
plan
hear you.
is that they're going to use, so that temporary generator is still out there, and they're just gonna tie the pump to that while they do the electrical work. And we're skeptical that they even it shouldn't take them that long to do what they need to do. So they had asked for an hour to be conservative, I think. But anyway, they were told they couldn't take it offline at all. The pump station needed to be able to run while they did it, which was always in the contract. So as far as I know, they've worked it out, and they're gonna be out there on the 19th to do that. And that should be the final piece for Cobb Street Phase 1. Cobb Street Phase 2, we have the contracts for execution. So these are for the commission. So we had already approved, so you guys issued the intent to award. You approved the contract and the amount. We got the additional money at town meeting to be able to fund it. So this is just the contracts that need to be signed by the commission. So they've been signed by the contractor, and all their insurance is in place. We went back and forth with them with all the paperwork, contract language. So we're requesting that the commission sign these tonight. There's a place for the accountant to sign it, certify the money. There's a place for council to approve as to form. We don't always, that's up to you guys. I mean, the form hasn't changed from, the last 30 contracts that we did. So the language is all not on this contract. It hasn't been approved by council, but that's up to you. So I think, and, you know, Tara, I think it's the same with the others. I don't know that we
Yeah,
always get it.
we continue to use the same contract,
Same
but
format.
I can't, it's been
It's been
several
a-
years. I think did you get Pine Street at one point? Maybe 2 years after the
We
construction?
did, yeah, it took
Yeah.
a very long time.
So the cover letter says you need to get council to sign, accountant to sign, and the commission to sign. So it's up to you on the council
So
one.
is this something we need to approve or
So,
sign?
I think you just sign, I think because you've already approved the contract, so the two stickers that say sign here, let me make sure that that's, so forget, the other ones are just where the dates need to go, and Frank, your office you guys can work on the dates. We say whatever, you end up using today's date, I think. So, yeah, so sign here. So just the first one, so the second one is where the accountant will sign. So the three of you, there's a spot for the three of you to sign on the first sign here.
Alright.
And there's four of them, so.
No problem.
Awful lot of paper.
Yep.
Nope, wrong one.
Answer it back. How many copies do you need of that, Steve? All four are right there. Sorry.
Oh, so I'll take two. Couple of if you want, if you need it, I can. So we'll make sure.
I think I did four of them.
We'll figure it out.
I'm missing one.
They're going back and forth.
Oh, you passed the stuff. Get them to town.
Yeah, it's this one.
Great, thank you.
And these to town.
So it is.
And when they're done,
Tara gets two.
Whoa, all right, presents today.
So Frank and Brooke, I don't know if you help with these or if Nancy does. Once you get James's signature,
This was all.
then you'll issue the notice to
Oh, it's
proceed.
not the signed one.
And so we gave you a Word version and a PDF version. But let us know if you have any questions on that. Once you have them all signed, we need to get it, the notice to proceed issued with an official start date, which is usually within 10 days of the tonight. The start date is like within 10 days of the commission signing the contracts.
If James is in, usually he signs them rather quickly.
And it's all outlined in this cover letter, and here's that draft notice to proceed. So this was all in the email that I had sent, but these are the actual contracts. So.
We don't need the clerk to sign these, right? Because it's
No,
not an engineering contract.
correct. All right, so that's phase two. So yeah, we'll get that notice to proceed out, and then we'll see what their schedule is. That type of work. At least there's
Is that
there's
Bizco?
no real.
Is that
That's
Bizco?
Bizco, yeah. And this is the paint, sealing and painting, so
right,
we're not
yeah.
waiting for a generator. The
Or a
lead
gas
guy.
service.
Hopefully the lead, yeah, or a gas service, correct,
Who
yeah.
would have thought the generator got there first?
Yes.
That's pretty cute.
That's, yes. So I think we talked about the peer reviews, and at least we talked about the Balfour one. We did send a peer review contract over for Zero Reservoir. We haven't signed it, we haven't got anything back from them yet, but, so we'll proceed with that one. And you guys authorize, so I haven't sent a contract to Zero Mansfield, the other one. But you guys authorized the peer review for that one too, so we'll get that one going. I talked to you earlier, we'll follow up more. We do wanna, as part of the Elm Street project, one of our items was to update the GIS map, the sewer map. So I'd like to set up a meeting with the, whoever has the most information of what you have in the GIS system as far as the layers and stuff, and see what we can do to give you a more functional sewer map. You know.
Must have set up a meeting with himself.
That's why it's getting
Do you
nowhere.
have something? I mean, I know there's a sewer map.
So we
But
produced.
didn't you do it?
We did it.
Okay, that's what I thought. I don't understand.
I just want to make sure that no one's ever advanced it
I don't think-
into actual
well-
GIS. I don't think they have. So.
We have some-
And what do they want? You know, what? It'd just be nice to make sure we understand what,
We don't have software for any of that stuff, right? GIS stuff on,
The town has
on the
some
industrial, on the
limited stuff.
utility stuff.
We have some items that are GIS
Yeah,
on
we
the
have some.
water portion, very limited on what we have.
I mean, there's all sorts of software out there now. I imagine that's what you're looking at, right?
yeah. All right, well, we'll talk,
Yeah.
we'll advance that. And in conjunction with what we were just talking about, it does, so we are trying to wrap up a memo for the schools in terms of giving them a preliminary idea of what type of infrastructure they need and what the cost of that would be to tie to again, convert that pump station, that treatment plant at the middle school into a pump station that would then just flip around and use the force main that's out there already, that was being used the other way. They also have the ability to do the same thing at the Solomon's
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
because the infrastructure is all in 123 already, so they could build a pump station over there. So they're still on septic over there. So if they wanted to put a pump station in at the Solomon's and run the line out to the front of the property and connect to the stub that was left in their driveway. Again, there's a stub in their driveway and then a stub in the middle school driveway.
So who does that for the schools? Do you know?
Right now, they had a contractor to do the work when they did the ball fields, and they only did some limited work on the drainage over there. They never upgraded the high school and yellow school sewer to actually have liquids and solids go to the new municipal.
And that's part of this
That's
study
part
that
of
they had
this
us do.
Study.
Yeah.
as
Well, it
far as
just seems
what's
they should have a
recommended to get
consultant
done.
engineer. I mean, it seems, I don't know what it costs to run their treatment plant, but it seems, after
So
a
they
year,
have-
they could easily convert over to a pump
Yeah.
station,
It shouldn't
and
be a
save
big
all
deal.
sorts of money.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the information that goes into that will play into what we're talking about here. There would just be the added, I just have to look at how that particular property, maybe there's an opportunity for them to approach the schools and say they want to share in the cost.
I think
of what
that's
the
the only way
schools are gonna do.
schools might move forward with
Yeah.
changing that.
You know.
If it works right now, I don't think that's their main focus.
I'm just, I mean, obviously, they must have somebody operating their treatment plant. It's not
It
Western
is
Sanford,
privately
right?
operated.
Correct.
Whitewater or
It's not,
something?
yeah, I don't remember who, but yeah, there is somebody that
But
operates it.
Whitewater or whomever the operations side had nothing to do with design stuff. I mean, it's a whole different.
No, they
entity.
want us to design it.
Okay. That's
So
fine.
they want us to give them at least
Well,
an initial
again,
study on what it's
I-
gonna
you know,
cost.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's, it's relatively a simple thing to do.
yeah, yeah, it is.
They have the power, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not an energy thing,
Nope.
Power-wise, that should be there.
Mm.
It's a matter of digging a hole and throwing a wet well in.
Yep.
I mean, essentially. Or maybe you can take an existing manhole to do it, for all I know.
Yeah. So, the more I
I
thought
can
about
picture
that
it in
as
my
we were,
brain.
as we
I've
were
done it so many
talking.
times in my head,
Like I said, the change of leadership over there.
No, that's the
they
problem.
may
You
not be
need,
aware
you need a
of
leader
this
who
project.
thinks this is important to do it. That's why I asked you if there's somebody on board doing it, Who's, being the orchestra leader. Because
right.
it would be nice for
Yes,
them to
Steve?
concentrate on
Anything else?
education than it
Thank
is to
you.
about wastewater.
Hey, Mr. Harry, you're up.
All right.
I read your contract.
Yes. Was it exciting?
I like
How many
it.
edits? Nope. All right. So Frank talked a lot at the beginning with his updates on what we've been kind of helping with over the last couple months. So the general engineering services contract, we've been providing some general consulting, obviously meetings, calls, discussions, emails with, and providing some data for the PFAS, obviously, and the initial response to DEP. Next steps are the interim response and potentially a permit application, and then obviously the longer term permanent potential solution that you guys are looking at. And I think that there's enough going on right now that we did recommend that we have more of an executive session to kind of talk through everything of here's some information on the lead and copper rule coming down and potentially if assistance is needed on that end of digitizing and creating a database and a website and items to put on the website for EPA. And then the other part of it all is, we discussed briefly meters that got put on hold because of the PFAS, so, but we chatted a little bit through a couple different things over the last month or two. So you'll see some charges for last month, November month end coming out shortly, and then obviously to end the new year, but our contract's through June 30th. So we've, I think as of the end of November, I think we've spent about, maybe quarter, I think, of the budget. So we've got, additional funds that we can use towards the PFAS, depending on which route we go. But I do think a full-blown alternatives analysis is warranted. We're talking about everything from blending at the site to an iron and manganese upgrade plant with PFAS treatment at that site to pumping it over to the treatment plant through a 2.5 mile pipeline. So there's a lot of options there, and there's costs to initial upfront capital costs through operation and maintenance and running and as you know, like running a new plant, potentially, what are you talking about, 5-6 million or something like that. So, and then you have to have a certain, a primer operator over there as well. So if the yield is good, and we were talking about your maximum 250 or so, 275 for that. We've also been consulting a little bit with Well One on just potentially opportunities there, and as Frank mentioned, DEP had indicated that there's a potential that maybe we could do some flow swaps that would likely require, unless they're going to go on data from, that's a little aged. That we kind of talked about that, but you'll probably have to go through a WS-17 permit approval with well pumping and then obviously a water management act amendment as well, which I'm pretty sure we still haven't gotten our final permit yet. But so it's
How
open.
many years does that take?
So this is. Let's see, we met in 2019, so it's not my tenure job that I'm still, we wrapped up, but it's, it's a little lengthy. But they're short-staffed, and certainly COVID did not help any of that with those guys, so. So there's a lot of the general work, and then also, we did start, I think it was a couple months back, we talked about some GIS edits with some labeling and some edits, so we started finalizing that, I think it was right before the end of the November month end, so we should have some updated mapping for you guys on the GS water side of
I have
things.
to ask a silly question. I think I mentioned to you, Frank, that a couple of weeks ago, Sharon voted, they were having a special town meeting to either build a PFAS plant or connect to the MWRA. I'm not so sure where the vote went. Do you know? Does anybody know?
I don't,
I mean, they said that's what they gave. The town meeting vote was either you vote this or you vote that. There wasn't a three. There wasn't an option C. I don't know how it went. I actually was in Sharon today. I could have asked. So the question is, on our water supply, do we have another option other than our own water supply?
We have intermunicipal connections available, but each of those communities have their own share of other issues that they are dealing with.
I mean, we don't have an equivalent MWRA that we have an option
No.
to tie to. Okay,
No.
that was my question.
Temporary connections are available, to be determined as far as what the cost and stuff would be, but there is a lot involved with it. Norton actually runs on a higher pressure than our surrounding communities. So if we were to lose a facility and require additional water from another community, we would
We have a
to
hydraulic
section
pipeline problem.
off,
No, I understand that.
areas of town.
It's not uncommon that every town has a different,
Right.
it's always,
We had a desal opportunity, but that went out the window.
well, that was
Yeah.
many years ago already. It must be 20 years ago already.
Yeah, they pumped that to waste now, that's okay.
No, I was just curious. I mean, it's, I don't know if that was a factor, but if there was a, again, I don't know what the Sharon vote went.
yeah, I should know, but I didn't.
It just
Didn't
happened,
come up
so
at our
you should
last-
find out.
Yeah, at our last meeting, missed our meeting.
Missed that one.
And I didn't ask anybody in my family, because I missed Thanksgiving due to COVID, so. But, so yeah, you guys have a couple intermunicipal interconnections, but currently you more or less send the water out and have not really
We
imported
typically
in,
provide,
so
correct.
you would need a temporary bypass pumping system and.
And we have double hydrants on town lines, is that what we have? That's how we would do
We
that?
have an actual physical connected
Oh,
water main to Attleboro in 2 locations. Mansfield, we have the hydrant connection.
mhm.
We have a physical valve on
Up
Gilbert
on,
Street.
yeah, Richmond
yeah.
Avenue end. And then we have hydrant to hydrant connection possibility with Easton.
Well, it's good to know. It's good to have a plan B. I'm sure I told you, that Randolph, we didn't have a plan B when I was water commissioner. And nobody thought that was important. They now have they have a connection to MWRA, as a backup line.
How much would it cost to put that pipe in?
It cost them quite a bit, but they did it.
And out to here.
Oh, here? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's only a pipeline. When we were doing work in Pakistan, we were gonna run a 300-mile water line, and nobody seemed to have been bothered by that, so.
A lot of sand out there, though.
Easy digging.
No,
Yeah.
just
Right.
no ledge.
It's only money.
Voltage.
Well,
So anyway, so long and short, I think Frank did a pretty good summary of what our discussion yesterday and my car ride down.
when you say executive session, you mean with us, right?
Yeah, so the executive session would be more, and we did it for, well, 4, just kind of go through that. It's a lot of technical, information, just kind of put it up on a PowerPoint, let you guys all take a look at it, ask some questions back and forth, be a little bit more, an info session to provide you with data and kind of talk through some options. We did that with 5 and 6 after we got the results for the water quality, and same thing, here's where we want to put the replacement well, what are you going to do? So in this case, we just have a bunch of different things coming down the pike in the next several months that could significantly be costly for the water.
Well, you go plan it for whatever's convenient, let us know, and we'll
Yeah, I
meet
guess
accordingly.
question is whether or not if you guys want to do a virtual or if you want to try to do something in person after work, or what works on your end.
I'm always a big favor of them in person, but that's me.
I'd rather do in person.
Yep,
That's fine.
okay. My Foxborough office is being gutted right now,
That's-
so.
We've been there a few times.
Yeah, that conference room
Can't use
is,
it now.
I mean, there's a couple holes in the wall and stuff there. They're renovating and they're blowing out, expanding, so. But yeah, we have lots of opportunity to kind of set it up.
I can always meet at Red Mill Village Meeting House if we needed to,
Okay.
do it offsite somewhere.
So I'll take a look at potentially next week, but otherwise, I think then the week after that is the holiday, and then New Year's, and then, yeah, so I think we're probably looking at maybe the first week of January if we don't do it next week, but just to kind of talk through a couple of the things, but I think the only other items that we've really been going through, so I mentioned the lead and copper meters, GIS and PFAS, and wells 1 and 3. So that's kind of the general engineering services right now. We've been kicking into, which if we continue down the PFAS route under that, that's going to blow pretty quickly. So we were anticipating doing an initial quick little study on that and helping with the DEP response, and then potentially providing more of a formal contract for services on the analysis and alternatives analysis. But I did want to kind of just sit down with you guys and just talk through things, because some of the, we're talking anywhere from a couple $100,000 to $6 million, so that's a lot. That's a big range, so
The window.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, range.
What did Mansfield spend for their facility?
The most recent one was 9 sticks into my mind, but we did a lot of it, other improvements too, so it wasn't just PFAS. We did new wells. We had a well field, but the original one that we had, the first one that we had, which didn't require green sand, I want to say that was about 4 or 5 for that plant.
I mean, we kind of like,
Let's start with how it-
we talked about last time, we can be reactive or proactive. I think we need to be proactive.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question, especially now.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so we'll look at some dates and send out some
Great.
options.
Perfect.
The other items I had were, obviously I sent the email this afternoon with the South Worcester and East Hodges. That's our next step for that project, is to kind of go into construction. So we're got some comments back from the water department, making some minor updates, and then get that prepared for bidding. The intent is to bid this winter and have executed contracts so we can get started April 15th, more or less, right around that time period, assuming the contractors can get materials. So,
Perfect.
but it'll be more or less roughly, I think it should be under 7,700 feet, because our intent is to find some ductile iron out there on East Hodges and hopefully be able to stop and not continue all the way down the extra 600 or so feet. But So roughly about a year construction with final paving or so, if we can get that done next year, all the pipeline. We've got the cleaning and lining, structural lining underneath the railroad permit. We're just waiting for those final signatures from DOT and the railroad, but they did issue that permit. I think I updated the commission on the last meeting. So we do have that paperwork at least, so we're not gonna wait for the final signatures, that takes another month or
That's
two.
fine.
It's
Good.
not a big deal, so we just wanna make sure that's in place before they break ground. But we will have temporary bypass out, so that is one thing that we wanna make sure weather improves enough that we'll be putting that out there in April. That'll be a great upgrade, getting rid of some lead goosenecks, take those off the list of the lead service line replacements at least, and then just have some better redundancy throughout that area of town. So I have a contract here. It's a little bit more hefty than we normally would because I have been holding off on these contracts until we do a bid opening, check out who the contractor is. The work is a little extensive and a little bit, I've just got a heavier resident rep work, but it's all time and materials, so. As far as that work goes, if you get a good contractor out there and they have two crews or 3 crews, we've kind of had the budget in there to cover that. But if they're 1 crew, we'll likely be kind of slow and hopefully it'll be good. So that's a little bit, just a little bit higher than we normally, just to cover our butts if it's 150 days of construction. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the email. But it's their standard scoping for resident rep work and office services, and it's for the South Worcester and East Hodges Street. It's an amendment number 1, and the total cost is $378,400.
And most of it's not
Yeah.
most of it's resident engineer for,
Yeah, it's about 200 and yeah. There was a breakdown there, just 82,000 for the office for a year and a half, and then the as far as the resident rep work goes, that's the significant.
have you looked over the contract, Frank?
Yeah.
John? You looked over it? No, don't do that. Not under your,
It is depending on what I'm doing that night.
He's been in lead and copper world.
yeah, lucky him.
It's a fun world.
You sleeping yet? Through the night?
Yeah, pretty good.
You can read through all these
How old?
contracts. That'll be helpful.
8 months. 8 months.
It's a good age.
He's getting a personality.
Yeah, that's what happens. Good, bad, or indifferent?
Pretty good.
Oh, good.
But he's found his voice, so now he's yelling.
He's not talking yet though, right?
No.
Wait until the first word's no, by the way. Just wanting you to know.
Okay, so,
It might be pizza.
we need to do a motion for this and vote, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can do it just as 1 for the total, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're approving the amendment number 1.
Yep,
That's what
okay.
you're
I
approving.
make a motion to approve amendment number 1 for engineering services between Town of Norton and Weston and Sampson Engineers for the South Worcester Street and East Hodges Street area water main improvement projects in the amount of $378,400.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is all part of this,
So these
right?
are the 3 copies for signature. You just flip them over. And then last month, we talked about it at the meeting, but we didn't actually, I didn't email it over to you guys before the meeting, but we have the contracts for Cottage Street, the storage tank design, which really also includes the whole overall water storage study for the town. That was one contract, and the other contract was the ground storage tank at Cottage Street for the aeration design for that. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at those. I sent those out the night of the meeting, or it was maybe the next day.
Yeah, looks like the next day.
I don't think I saw those.
No. Get him over to you, just in case.
Okay.
November 14th, yeah, I can send that.
Just 3 of these?
It's the nice thing about emails, you can always hit forward now.
Oh, I know why I didn't receive those. I was in Aruba.
That's a good
Ah.
reason.
That's
a
why.
great reason not to
That's why I didn't
receive
see it.
Just rub it in.
Sorry.
Yeah, Steve was
Didn't
in
invite me.
Arizona that night of the meeting, and,
I golfed with Troy O'Leary.
oh,
Yep,
That's what it looked like.
that's terrible.
Nice.
That's terrible. That's not even a pretty color
That was
blue.
a view from my room.
Where were you? What was the hotel?
Marriott Surf Club.
Aruba seems like a popular place to go for people.
Have you ever
in this
gone?
area.
It's all right
I
now.
go to all the other countries.
No, this is the perfect place to go on vacation, because there's only one thing,
Yeah.
really, you need to relax. There's no cell service, there's no Wi-Fi. It's
That's good.
really,
Oh, that's why I don't go.
That's an excellent selling point to me.
You don't bring your laptop and work? It's so much more fun.
beach, there's food,
Are you
and
all set?
gambling.
So if you hadn't looked at the Cottage Street things, I guess I'll just say conditional approval, but we can vote on that at least. I know Frank's anxious to kind of get them executed, but, so as
Do you
far
have
as,
copies of those?
I do, right here.
I apologize for not looking that over.
No, that's all right, May 9.
Get it done.
Yeah, right?
So the one is for 185,000, the other one is for 65,000. So the storage tank, Cottage Street's ground storage tank. So
These are
185.
Three the same?
Yes.
No, what
Well,
are they?
let's see, did I give you all three?
Yeah. Yeah, you gave us one.
Two? Here?
This is for,
Okay, yes.
this
This is
is for,
the
Cottage
aeration
Street
study,
tank.
that's the,
Cottage Street tank improvements right there.
So what are you doing here again?
So for the storage tank, we're taking, so you have an elevated storage tank over there that's riveted. It's basically, we're anticipating that we're going to be replacing it versus repainting it. But the intent is to also take a look at your overall storage capacity throughout the system. You've got, 2 ground storage tanks, 3 million and 2 million, and then you've got 2 elevated tanks. One is, the one, Cottage Street is 500,000, and I think the other one's half, if not 375.
How old is Cottage Street?
1957.
So the biggest concern is keeping it, whether or not we keep it online or if you have property. And we just want to do a full study on the storage, because we also had the concerns with THMs, and there's a decent amount of volume in your system in tanks right now. So potentially we might upgrade the size of the elevated and maybe downgrade the size of another tank or something like that. So that's kind of in the design / study of that. And then this aeration is actually just to design and bid a design for an aeration system in the ground storage tank. It's right there in the center town of Cottage Street. That's your 2 million gallon tank right in the center.
That was a recommendation from DEP. They've seen it work well in other communities that had similar THM exceedances as we have in the past.
So, yeah, mixing in and THM removal is the goal for the aeration system.
All right.
I'm good with this. What were the amounts for these?
So that is the Cottage Street
This
one.
is the Cottage Street tank. Is that the
The tank-
185?
That's a 185, yeah.
Okay.
And the aeration is 185.
Okay, so we'll do that in 2 separate
Yep.
ones then. Okay, I make a movement, or a motion rather, I move to approve the agreement for engineering services between Norton and Weston and Sampson for the Cottage Street tank improvement projects in the amount of $185,000.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, on the back.
Yeah. This one, unfortunately, I have to flip a page.
It's a bummer, man.
You know, I think that unfortunately this one I didn't click double-sided, and so it's single page too.
Heavy.
It would have been a nice flip over.
Yours?
but round all the way to the.
Around-
I'm gonna make a
Like,
quick copy of the one page and then hand these over for town hall to sign off on. Okay, thank you. And then this one is the aeration study for 65,000.
Yep.
And design, I should say too.
Cottage Street ground storage tank aeration projects. Yep.
So Frank, I thought this said December 10th, and I thought it was the signature for the final permit, but it's
No,
November,
I
so
wouldn't
it's,
have that
yeah.
I haven't seen it.
No, they're pretty good about emailing everything over to us, but. In fact, I don't even know if they have your, yeah, they have your contact list.
I'm ready.
Yeah, me too. Steve?
Sure.
Okay, I move that we approve the agreement for engineering services between Norton and Weston and Sampson for the Cottage Street ground storage tank aeration project in the amount of $65,000.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The only other thing on my list then was the Balfour Farm, so we provided our comments. We only were able to comment on the plans themselves. There weren't any other details or anything provided, so that was the major comment that we had was, hopefully they know how to install water main, which we've learned since then that we've provided with additional feedback on that. So I think, now that they put the full one street in, it sounds like hopefully this will be known, and then we adjusted and indicated on those plans the valves that you guys wanted in the hydrant hook issues, so I think we're good. But yeah, let us know if you need any more help with that, but we've closed out our contract with Balfour on that one.
Sarah, tomorrow I'm gonna forward you an email from, town hall about, an audit, and, I'm sending it to Steve as well. I think it's the White Street project.
The ARPA
And, the ARPA money for the sewer side. They need to know about our bidding procedures and have a copy of all the bids and some stuff that I think we should have, no problem. I have to get the combine stuff, but I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Yeah, I think every so often we have to go through, so they, central register, all that stuff, get the actual official
Yep.
contracts, sure, yep. It's all scanned in a folder, so it shouldn't be too bad. Although I don't have the combines, because I think you guys all have
That's
those.
us.
Yeah, I can get that, hopefully.
Yeah, so newspaper article, you guys, White Street, you did that one, I think yourselves too.
If we do, it'll be in the computer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, what, on the contract docs, just let me know what you need.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, any other, any items anyone wants to discuss?
I got nothing.
All right, next meeting will be,
I have, I don't know what I have.
January, what, the 9th?
I have the 9th, yep.
January
Tuesday,
9th, sound
the
good to everybody?
Sure.
And then we'll figure out a good time next week, hopefully, for executive session, Tara? And
Yeah.
we'll- Yeah.
Frank, is that all right
Tuesday.
with you?
That works.
Yeah.
I think Tuesday I can't, we'll figure it out, All right.
All right,
Well,
we good?
nice list, yep.
Great.
All right, Jim.
All right, I move to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good meeting.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.